Oh, I know we're live. I'm just teasing you guys. Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? I hope you guys doing good. Welcome to Tuesday night code live stream where we're gonna continue building our fantastic portfolio project. I keep saying fantastic all the time to make myself feel good about it. But the point is, if you're looking to get into web development, you need to build a portfolio. You need to build things from scratch to get hired. So this is basically me building stuff live, mostly failing live, for you guys to kind of see the reality of coding, especially if you're starting out. So if you are a self-taught developer or you just started learning to code and you kind of try to figure out, how do I go about thinking about stuff to build? What do I do? How do I do it? And so that's what we discuss and talk on this live stream. Regardless, I keep saying this, regardless how many people come on and watch versus how many people don't watch, it doesn't matter. And the point is, the reason why I do this is that I want to schedule a time where I consistently work on my project, and eventually over time, being consistent, I'm going to have a project to put into my portfolio. And that's the challenge to you guys. If you're not sure where to start, just start building stuff from scratch. It's not easy, but it will teach you the most important part, which is how to code on your own. And that's what you would be doing at your job. And so in today's fantastic live stream, we're going to add a blog section to our project. So let me kind of share with you guys what we have so far. So we have this Dev Hunt website that I'm working on. This is running locally, so it only has one particular project on it. We could add more stuff to this later, but for now, my God, I have to make my head smaller. There you go. But for now, what do we have? We have the home section that we're on right now. Blog section, that's what we're going to work on today. You have the ability to see the details, leave comments if you're logged in. And to log in, we incorporated forgot password if you forgot your password here, but I think I remember, so you're able to log in. And so what I want to work on today is setting up the blog page here, adding the view that I want, and then making sure if we add some test blogs in the back end, making sure that we could post those blogs to the front end here. And I should probably change this. I incorporated automatic logout, but it will log me out every 20 seconds. So I'll change that in just a second. But anyway, if you're on, let me know if you guys could hear me or not. Let me know if you guys could see me. Let me know if the music is not too loud, and kind of go from there. But today we're going to talk about building that blog. And hey Anna, what's up? Good to see you. And that's what we're going to do, kind of work on that. Let me just go here into my idle timeout and change the idle timeout to something useful. Use timeout, let's do like a big number here, so I don't get automatically timed out while working on the application. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on this blog section. It's going to be exciting, maybe not, it doesn't matter. But what matters is that I'm working on my portfolio project. I'm doing it live, giving you an opportunity to see what it's like to code on your own. A lot, like the biggest misconception, a lot of people, especially when starting out, like they see these people who are working on stuff that they already created beforehand, and they're just typing the code. They don't have any errors. They're not running into any problems. And you start to believe or think like, oh man, that's how everybody codes. Like nobody makes mistakes. It's just perfect. But the truth is, that's not the case. The case is when you're coding on your own at home, you will constantly run into problems. You will constantly have issues. And that's where our goal is, to make sure that we continue on forward. And this is why I want to have these unprofessionally done live streams, to kind of showcase the reality of coding. You know what I mean? And that's what we're going to do. And today we're going to work on the blogs. And hello, Vinyl Guy. Good evening. Hey, good evening to you too. North Chimp, aka NCH. Hello. Hey, what's up? Good to see you. So we're going to work on the blog. And so the first thing I'm going to do is kind of do like a quick layout that I want for the page. So I'm gonna use this box. Very professional of me, right? So this is gonna be my blog page. And what I wanted to do on Twitter, I don't know if I could find it. Somebody had a pretty cool blog. I don't know if they made it or they had it. Let me see if I could find it. I thought it was kind of cool and clean. How do I see my own tweets? The tweets that I wrote or shared. Let's see here. Yeah, if you guys don't follow me on Twitter, I have Twitter at coding30. Basically, you could check it out. I'm just looking for this blog that I found that I thought was kind of neat and cool. And I can't find it. Great. So I thought, you know, the things you post on Twitter stay on Twitter. Apparently, I lost it. No big deal. No big deal, because I'll talk about the layout that they had. So let's go back to my screen share. I can't find it here on Twitter that I shared. But basically what we're going to do, imagine this is our screen and this is going to be our blog section. So I'm going to have basically two pane system. Pane, is that a word? Like not pane like I'm hurt, but like glass pane. Kind of look like this, two columns. And so what I want to do here is in this part on the left, what I want to have is I want to have the, you know, the list of items. It doesn't have to be like perfect. Maybe we'll even incorporate the search bar, but for now we're not going to worry about search bar. I'm just gonna, oh, what are you doing? Control copy, control paste. We're just gonna paste a bunch of these to kind of say that this is gonna be a list of our blog posts. So today we're gonna kind of work on, can we at least make this component? And then here what I want to do is I want to have like the blog section, which is gonna maybe have an image, maybe have some sort of text, something super simple, you know, like a couple of paragraphs or some image. So this is going to be like the basic general layout for our blog section that we're going to do. So nothing fancy. And again, I'm just kind of doing it off the cup. Mir1224, what's up? Good evening. Good to see you here. I'm just doing it off the cuff, like, because the basic idea, you want to start with planning. So let's plan our UI with this basic mock-up idea. So we know we're going to have our page for our blog, which is going to have our list of items, and then it's going to have our, you know, blog post. So we know that. So next thing what I want to do is, let me go to Google, is because I want to kind of figure out the data structure for blogs, like what data. And so you could Google, so you could do blog post data structure database. I don't know, like let's just Google that, see what happens. So I want to kind of get an idea. Guide to design database for blog management in MySQL, because we're using Postgres, and this is kind of like exactly what I wanted to see. And so our blog could have users, we'll have our posts, and the posts will have the ID, author ID, parent ID we don't really need. We'll have a title, we'll have meta tags for title, slug. If we want to do that, we could do that later. We'll have a summary, when it was published, if it's published or not, and the content. So we're kind of going to base off this, and then eventually we could have comments on our blogs, we could add categories, but we're going to start super simple. So we know that we want to have a post for our blog, which we're going to create in our Strapi backend, and then we know that we want to have at least our content, title, and the author ID. So I'm gonna jump in here, and we're using Strapi on our backend. If you're not familiar with Strapi, you could always go to strapi.io, and it's, in my mind, the simplest and the easiest way to set up a backend API. And this is kind of what I did, the steps that I took to get this up and running. And so we have this beautiful UI which allows us to add different data structures to our database. So I'm going to go into my Strapi instance here. I'm going to log in, and so we know that we want to create a post data object for us to store that data. And with Strapi, it's like super easy. All I do is I go to content type builder and I say create a new collection type. and then I'm gonna say post, because that's what it's gonna be. You could be blog, and then I'm gonna click continue. And now we're gonna start with the bare minimum text. We want to have a title. It's title 2 T's, I think so. It's gonna be a short text, and title is going to be required. Let's add another field. Next, you're gonna add text, but we're gonna call it let's call it tags. We'll just make tags. We'll make it short tag, whatever, no big deal. Just to add some data. Those are not going to be required. Add another field. Let's add rich text, which is going to be content, and content is going to be required. Add another field. Then let's add a boolean called do I want to make it draft, or let's do like private. Let's say if the boolean's on, this is private, so let's not show this. So that way, if you set your blog to private, other people can't see it. And add another field. Let's make a relationship to author. And this is why I love Strapi, because it allows you to make this super easily. So I don't know how to spell author, apparently. A-U-T-H-O-R. Author, like has Thor in it. That's good to know. And an author has, why is it, we want this to be posts. No, user. Post has author, and we want to use this one, users. So, and we're going to call it author. So now our post belongs to many users. No, our user has many posts. That makes sense. So, right, so if I'm a user, I should have many blogs. So that's the relationship we're kind of creating here. So I'm going to say finish. So now for the most basic data structure for our blog, we have a title, tags, the content that we want, is it private or not, and the author. Then we click save, and it's going to say error occurred because after every change that you make, the backend has to rebuild itself. So this is the backend. So basically it needs to start all over again, but that happens automatically. And if we look here, by the way, this is the backend that we have, and we just added the data structure for our blog in our backend super easily using Strapi, and this automatically created this route JSON for us, which basically gave us all these methods to get the posts, to get the count of the post, get the post by ID to find one, create a post, and ability to update a post. And again, I did not have to make this from scratch. This is something that Strapi handled for us. We also have our post controller, we have our post models, and then all those things are generated through this JSON setting. Again, you don't have to understand this in detail, but this is basically the model for the fields that we have. We have our collection name posts, and then for our posts, we have our title, which is type string. We have our text, type string. We have our content, which is type rich text. We have our private field, which is Boolean. We have our author, which is our user relationship. And the whole point that I'm showing you this, you don't have to understand all the details, but that's why I like Strapi, because someone who's concentrating on the front end, you could have Strapi to easily set this up to you. You saw that we literally did it in 2 minutes. So now if I go back here to my Strapi, I could now create a post here, add a new post, my first post, tags, let's say web dev, whatever, and then we'll separate it with a comma. It'll be a comma separated thing. It doesn't matter right now what we're doing. And then we don't even need a comma here, whatever. And then we could, what I like about this here is that whenever you write stuff here, you could write it like regular, like blah 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 blah, or you could use what is it called, MDX or whatever, MDX blog, how to build my blog using MDX. It's very common to use Next.js. You could use it in so basically Markdown, and you have this thing MDX that allows you to kind of translate Markdown into HTML, which is awesome, which allows you to basically, let's kind of come back here, write your blog here, use this to style it, and then it's going to be returned in a HTML format that you could style in the way you want. But for now, we're not going to worry about it. Let me just find some lorem ipsum. I don't even know how to spell it. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to find like a paragraph here, control copy, kind of go back here to my Strapi instance, and I'm going to make sure this is not private. Add author. I'm gonna add aria, click save, and then I'm gonna click save and click publish. And again, this is just using Strapi to set up our content, and this was like super easy to do. Literally took us 2 minutes to do it. And let me say hello to the chat before we continue. Yes, I'm the main Strapi presenter because Strapi is awesome. How are you, Paul? Great to see you here. Well, great to have you here, my friend. Thank you for joining us. Justin B, good evening. Glad to see you live. I'm almost done with Udemy course on vanilla JavaScript. I'm just deciding on jumping into React, but I don't know SQL yet. Don't worry about it. Just start with React first and use Strapi with Postgres, and I have a video that I've done that shows you how to easily set it up. So Justin, I would say start with React and use Strapi to set up your backend. Engine Boy, good morning. Yes, and so perfect. Like if you use Strapi, you could start to learn PostgreSQL, which is basically SQL, as you build your project, and it's an easy, great way to do it. And Luke, what's up? And so, for instance, this database that I have here, and we'll take a look in just a second. I'll show you the SQL database that's running locally. But for now, I'm just going to finish. So I just created my first blog post. I'm just going to add another one. And so right now, basically, just to kind of sum up, what I did here is I added my first blog post. We're going to add another one. And what I'm doing here is like I kind of quickly went through and I was like, okay, I want to make a blog. So I kind of created this basic mockup, which is like, okay, I want to have 2 columns. On the left side, it's going to be a list of all the blog entries. When you click that list, it's going to show that particular blog that we're looking for. I forgot to add an image in our database, whatever. Don't worry about it. We'll get there later. And then next thing I looked up are like the most common like blog data structures that people have or relationship in a database like SQL or Postgres, or even using something like MongoDB. And so a post will have an ID, an author, will have the title, and the content. And so I didn't put all of these in here, but I basically made a very simple data structure for our blog. So if we go to our posts, go to our content types, and we'll hit post. Notice we have title, tags, content, private, author, and we could go ahead, add another field. And this is how easy it is to do in Strapi. Let's add a image, media. Let's call it, what do they call in blogs? Like when it's the main image, whatever. I'm just going to call image for now. Blog image, whatever. We'll start with one. We could always change it up. Blog image is going to be a single media type. It's not required. Let's finish. And just like that, I just added image to our data charts for a blog. And we're about to see the coolest part in a second. Let me just go back here. While it does its thing, reload, go back to posts. So I just added a post. Let me see, now I have the section to add an image. Let me just add this image here of this, just random. And damn it, just add this. No, don't add more. Just add this. Okay, finish, save. So now we have this image. So let me go ahead, add one more blog post so we could at least have some data to work with and go from there. Yeah, somebody image gallery. I was thinking of like featured image, hero image, same thing. Yeah, exactly. Thumbnail, all those are great. I was thinking exactly that, like featured image. So you'll have one main image, because you could also add images inside the blog. Man, I called it blog image. Let me kind of go back and call it feature image, because you could also import images in your kind of actual text here, right? You see there's a link here for an image, you could do it that way as well, which we'll talk about later. For now, we're just keeping it simple, but I'm going to make this featured image just so it's kind of self-explanatory. That's going to be the main image that we want to showcase on our blog. So let's go to our posts. I made a mistake here, so instead of blog image, I'm going to call it featured image. I'm going to click finish and save, and look, I updated that. And let me just go back and update it inside the post, right? Boom, it automatically updated. Fantastic. So before we kind of get the lay of the land and continue building this out, the first thing we're doing, like I said, we created a very simple mockup. We took a look at what data types we want in a database, and now we're adding via Strapi backend our test data, and so we could query it. And so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go to posts and add a new post, second post, whatever, very original, web dev, whatever, does, why not, tags. Let's add some more lorem ipsum here. Here we'll do 2 paragraphs to make it look different. And then once that's done, author is going to be coding after 30. Why not use a different? That's private off. And we're going to, you know, show how to invest in stocks. I'm just too lazy to find other images, so I'm going to cancel. I got to make sure I click finish and save. Publish. Let me just make sure. Okay, and so now we have 2 different posts that we added. And what's awesome now in Strapi, you already have this endpoint. So if I go to settings here and I go to roles, I go to public because we want to show those publicly available. Notice how here we have our posts. So now if I click find one, find and get the count, I have access to these endpoints in API. And what's cool about Strapi, you have access to REST API, and then you have access to GraphQL like we're using, and I'll show you both examples here. So now what I'm able to do, let me copy this. Let me open a new tab here to the right. And so now we have these endpoints available. So if I write posts, I believe, notice here, boom, we have our 2 posts that we added. And it has all the data that we need. We have the ID, title, tags, and content. We could also get posts by ID, and this is using the traditional, you know, now I get that single post REST API. But we're going to be using GraphQL, which we'll talk more about it. But the basic point is, within initially first few minutes, we set up our posts. And yeah, I see like Engine Boy says the first post was private on, and that's fine because we decide what we want to do with it. Right now, because we didn't write that logic to show it or not show it, it's going to return all these posts anyway. But we'll talk about that later. I just wanted to add it there in case, let's say you're writing a blog and you want it to be private, meaning that only if people are logged in should they be able to see it, or it's only private to you. We'll think about that when we get there. And let me, before I continue it though, basically just so you could see, we have our 2 posts. We have data in our back end now really quickly. And so now we could start implementing it on the front end. But let me look at the chat here, all the amazing people here. Yep. Yeah, don't worry about like, Paul, I'm still worried about back end and algorithms. And math, don't worry about it. Take your time, start with the front end, and that's why I use Strapi for the back end, because it does make it way easier, so I could concentrate on the front end more than anything. Where do you usually host your back end? So my back end is living on Heroku. So my back end is living on Heroku. Boom, right here. So my back end and PostgreSQL is living in Heroku, and my front end, I use Netlify, and both are free. You know, you could use Netlify for your front end, and for your back end, I use Heroku. So that's where I host my stuff. And what's up? Good to see you. Welcome. We work on blogs. So this is where I have it hosted. And as you could see here, Community One project, that's where it's hosted live. Currently, right now, I'm working on my local environment, and that's why you only see 1 post here, because I only added 1 post. And now we also just created an endpoint for our posts. So this is our projects, but now we have, well, actually it's not in the front end, I lied to you guys. It's in the back end that I just showed you here. Localhost, yeah, right here, posts. And now we have our data. So quickly to sum up before we continue building the thing, what did I do? Number one, I created a super professional mockup of what I want my blog to look like. I want left column to have all the different links to the blogs, and then the right column show you the actual blog post. The second thing I did, once I kind of came up with this quick and dirty mockup, I searched you know, the common like data structure, how to store the blog in the database. What are the common things that you need? You need to have, let's say, you know, an ID, author ID, you know, the title, the slug, if you want to do, which we could actually create slug in just a second, but we're not going to worry about it at the moment. And, you know, a bunch of this data, you know, I just created like super simple just so we don't spend the whole time. So in our posts, let me save this here. In our post, if we take a look at our content type builder, click post, I just added title, tags, content, private, author, and feature image. Because what I want to do is I want to make sure that I hook up my front end and back end and stuff actually works, that I'm able to pull data. Because I could add additional fields, additional functionality right later. But right now the main focus is like, let's set up the data in the back end. So we currently just created 2 blog posts, and then let me build out the back end to make sure that, you know, we could hook up the front end and the back end, communicate together, and actually get data. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is exactly that. I'm going to see, can I, when I go to the blog section, can I have access here to my data from the database? That's going to be step one, because if I could show basic data showing on the front end, I know I'm good to go, and doing the UI would be easy. So I'm not even going to start with the UI. I'm going to start with the actual functionality. And what's cool about using GraphQL is that we have this GraphQL Playground. And basically, if you've done REST API and you work with Postman, this is basically kind of like Postman for GraphQL. And you don't really have to worry about the complexity of how to do this with Strapi. Strapi makes it easy for you. And if you have questions, by the way, you guys could ask me questions about any of this. I'll be more than happy to answer. But they literally have a GraphQL plugin. You just install the GraphQL plugin, and then now you have access to GraphQL Playground, which allows you to do cool stuff. And on the React side of things, we're using Apollo client. And you could just Google it, and literally, I'm gonna, as we build this out, I'm gonna revert to this, but this basically gives you the introduction, how to get started with Apollo client in your React application. Very cool, very easy. So that's kind of what we're gonna do. So we got our data, we got set up in our backend. So let's now, when you're using GraphQL, we get GraphQL hooks that we have access to via React. Like we have use query and use mutation. So to be able to get a query or get the data from the backend, we would write a query, kind of like if you were doing, you know, using fetch, you would do a get request to a certain URL. And here, basically, we're writing a query, and I'll show you here, less talking. We write a query that will basically return the things that we want, and we want to get all the posts. And you're going to see that it kind of looks like JSON, but this is GraphQL query language. And the reason why they make it look like JSON is because you're literally defining what you want to get back, and you'll get it shaped inside a JSON object exactly for the things you ask. So we want to get an ID, we want to get the author, and for the author we want to get the ID, first name and last name, and I'll show you where that's coming from in a second. But right now we're just getting the post that we want, and this is created by Strapi, so I didn't have to create this. And you could look at the docs that automatically is created by Strapi for GraphQL. That's one of the reasons I love GraphQL, because as you write your code, it automatically creates the documentation. So if you look at posts, right? It kind of shows all the items that we have. We have access to ID, created at, updated at, title, tags, content, is it private, and the author, and featured image. So I'm going to get the ID, the author, let's get the title, let's get the tags, let's get the content, let's get if it's private or not, let's get when it was published, and let's get the featured image. And I think there's a couple of things that we could get. We got formats and oops, too many. What's happening? I did an extra sum. Oh, what am I doing? Formats, and we want to, what's cool, like when you're working with GraphQL in this playground, when you press, well, it's not working here, but I lied to you guys. Here, let me, I have too many, what do you call it, brackets. Let me get back here. Let me delete some. I'm losing a bracket here. What am I missing here? So we have brackets, prettier, no. So we have author bracket, that's fine. Okay, so we're missing a bracket here. I get in trouble here because I can't keep track of my brackets. Okay, we're good. So what's cool about GraphQL, sometimes you're not sure what fields they have. You click shift space and they're kind of going to show you all the available fields. So we have featured image, and then I know featured image gives you formats, and then you have a format. Let's see what kind of formats we have. I got to look that up. If I'm not sure, I clicked featured image. And look, it shows you all this stuff in the documentation. And if you see me stumbling, guys, that's why I do it live. That's why I want to show you guys that coding on your own live, this is normal. Getting stuck, making mistakes. So we basically want to get formats, and then the format is going to return everything that we need. I got you. So it's JSON. So it's just going to return a JSON object with the format. So we don't need to have these things here. And now check this out. When I hit play, notice what I get back. I get all the posts with this query using GraphQL. Now I have access to all the data and all the posts. So I know this query works. So now I could actually go ahead and start implementing this in my React. And before I do that, let me kind of go back and look at some comments because I love talking to you. Let's see here. Hey, that's okay. Usually when we first start, we don't have original ideas. You learn by copying, and then eventually you could build out more stuff. What did you recommend me to start after John Smilga course for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React? Anything for the back? Don't worry about backend. Just make sure you work through HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. And then for backend, use Strapi. Do you prefer GraphQL? Yes, I prefer GraphQL because it allows you to save amount of requests you make. Because I'll show you in the example here. So I didn't even, like, right now, like, check this out. We have authors, we have posts, and let's say if we had something like likes, I didn't implement likes, but let's say if we had, or, you know, tags, or, you know, categories, whatever, something that, for instance, if you were using REST API, actually I'll show you here. Let me go back to REST API here. So notice how we have our projects, and we have our, let's say, likes. It's a separate thing. We have likes. We also have comments. And so when you're using REST API, you would have to make, if I wanted to get a portfolio, not portfolio, if I wanted to get a project with its associated comments and likes, I would have to make a request to the project, then to comments, and then to likes. So that's 3 separate requests to get all that data. Where with GraphQL, I could make all of those 3 requests in one query. And I'll show it to you guys because it's implemented in our projects. So see here, I'm getting likes, and then I could also do comments, ID, and then what else is there in the comments, and author, and the actual comment. And so when I hit author first name, and so when I hit play here, I'm going to get all this data, but it's one request. It's not multiple requests that I would have had to do with REST API. So the thing with if you're using Strapi and GraphQL, it makes a very nice, easy experience. If you had to write GraphQL from scratch on the back end yourself, that's where things get hard. But because Strapi allows you to do this super easily, you know, I love Strapi for that. And again, I keep talking about Strapi because when you're learning front end and you don't want to make a back end from scratch, Strapi is the best way. And you could use it to learn about REST and GraphQL all in one place. But so let's review kind of like what we have here. So basically I came on and I decided I want to make a blog. So the first thing I did, I made a very simple mockup. I want 2 columns. The left column will be the links to each blog, and then the right column is going to be the actual blog post. Then the next thing I went and did, looked up what are the data types that you use to store blog in a database. So we want to have the ID, author ID, you know, title, maybe summary or slug, when it's published. And so what I did is I went ahead in our Strapi application, I added those fields. So if you look at posts here, we have our title, tag, content, private, author, and feature. And then we now have this available in the API. So notice how under posts here, I was able to query those items. So we have this query that we're going to use on the front end to get this data. And so basically what I want to do is I want to make the most like skeleton thing that I can where I have data in the back end and I'm at least able to get it to the front end before I even worry about the UI. So that's what we're going to work on. But we currently have our query, we have our data, we know our markup. So now I know where I have to go. Now let's go and start coding. So the first and most important thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you what I already did so far to kind of get started. I'll walk you through the code. It's going to not be too complex. And if it is, guys, ask me questions. So this is my application. This is the main app.jsx file, right? And all I did is I added a route here for the blog. And whenever you go to this blog route, it's going to show the blog component. And right now this component is empty. It doesn't have anything on it, right? It doesn't have anything on it. So this is where we at. This will be the blog page here. Let's get this working. Sounds great. So now if I go back to my application, see, this is, we have the home route, we have the blog route. When you go to localhost 3000/blog, this is where we are. This will help. This will be the blog page. Let's get it working. So the first thing and the most important part, if you're not getting data from an API, then there's no point of doing the UI even or whatever, because the functionality is not there. So I'm a big believer, get the functionality first and then let's work on the new UI. So that's what we're going to do. And I like to just write a bunch of code, and then if I need to, I will refactor it, because get it working first and then refactor. Don't try to write perfect code right away. So what I'm going to do here, and I already know this, but I need to import GQL from Apollo and GraphQL, use query hook. And so what use query hook does, it allows you to query the data that we want to get using the query that we wrote before. Where's my where we at? Where's my website? We'll basically be able to pass this query and get the data we want. And again, if you're getting confused, ask me questions. I would love to kind of answer them for you guys. But I'm kind of trying to give you a big overall picture. It's like, look, when you have a backend, you're getting some sort of data from the backend. There's some sort of mechanism, either using fetch, Axios, or GraphQL to get that data. So that's what we're going to work on. And the one thing that I want to check is what package I installed, because it's been a while since I took a look here, to use Apollo client. So for Apollo client, I literally installed Apollo client. So that's where I have to import stuff. That's why it's giving me issues here. Let's go to my blog to use timeout. blog JSX here. The reason it's giving me issues here is because this is imported from Apollo client. And again, you guys like, oh, I'm not sure, where's this coming from? Like, I'm not sure, how did you do that? Like, you go to Apollo docs documentation here, and you'll be able to see here. And basically, introduction to Apollo gets started. It shows you the setup. You need to do npm install GraphQL and Apollo client, which I already did. We already set up this initialization and literally copy and paste from the documentation. We already have that in code. And then here's, you set up your Apollo provider, which we already did. So I'm kind of going to gloss over it. And again, the documentation there. So now we're on the fetch data part. And this is basically shows you, you want to be able to pass a query and you use the use query hook. So that's kind of what we're working on. And to show you that I'm using the documentation, I'm literally going to copy this from here, go into my code and paste it here inside the blog page. And right now we just want to see, can we get data from the backend before we do anything else? And so loading error data, blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is not what we're going to call our thing, but basically we're using the use query hook provided by Apollo client, something that we have available once we do the npm install. GQL basically allows us to use the GraphQL query language to query what we want. And this is going to be posts query. And we already tested this query inside our GraphQL Playground here. You see right here, when I click play, it works. So I'm literally going to copy and paste that query in. And so let's go back to our code. So I'm going to paste it here. So basically what I'm doing is in order for use query hook to work, you need to pass in a query. A query uses the GraphQL query language where you basically ask what you want. And this is coming from our backend. So what I'm going to do is take control copy, post query, pass that query into our use query hook. And now we should have data. If loading, we're going to say return loading. If error, let's return error with a sad face. And then if we have data, we're going to console log the data. This is from our API in a very high tone voice. Aren't you guys excited, like being on the stream? If you guys not excited, smash the like button. If you are excited, smash it even harder. But so now basically let's kind of review. To get data from our Strapi API using GraphQL, we need two things. We need the query. This is what we have here. And then we also need to use query hook that's provided by Apollo client. And we need to pass a query into it. We get access to these three things: loading, error, or data. And now if we go to our front end, we should be able to get the data. So I go inspect, console log, refresh. You saw that quick loading there. Let me refresh again. Look at that quick loading, no errors. And now look, we have our two posts. We have our first post and our second post. So we know that works. That's amazing. So once I know that I'm getting data from my backend, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the most basic presentation of that in our UI. Can we display the data from our API? Just the most basic things before we start working on the view. So notice I always go functionality first, then I work on the UI, because if there's no functionality, what did you really accomplish, right? We want to get blogs, so that's what we want to do. So let me go check this out here, the comments here. I'm not sure if you're referring, what do you mean this is John's course? This is the personal project that I'm working on from scratch. So there is no course that is teaching you this. I'm literally just coding live. That's why I'm messing up all the time, because there's no practice for me. And blah, blah, blah. Okay, talking about if someone has a LinkedIn. Yep, fantastic. Yeah, everybody, guys, you should be on LinkedIn. You should all have GitHub. If LinkedIn is available in your country or you live in US, definitely set up LinkedIn, set up GitHub. That's a must. So let's get back into code. Let's do this. So we know we're getting our data from an API. So the simplest thing we want to do, can we show some data on the front end before we're doing it? So yeah, let's do that. So if you want to display data or anything that comes to you in an array of objects, notice this is on, if you take a look at it, we're getting an array of 2 items. So this is our post array and it has 2 objects. So if you want to get the data, and I'm gonna just, you know, we want to map over it using, so we're getting our data, our post, we want to map over it. And for now, we're just going to do something super easy where I'm just going to show an h1, just return h1 just to show you that we're getting the data. And hold on a second, map, yeah, post, return, and we're going to return posts refers. Actually, let me actually do it simpler just in case here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to console log post. This is from our, this is our post. So basically, where's this complaining? Array product expected return value. Oh yeah. Return. Let's return whatever. I got it, guys. Let's just return an h1 and we'll return post.id. So I'll get the post ID and return it. And so let's go take a look. This will be the way you implement it. Obviously, I wouldn't implement it here. I'm going to copy it. And if you want to use JavaScript within your JSX, you would put it inside the brackets. And this is how it knows to execute the JavaScript code. And so we're going to execute this data.post.map call. And we're going to console log each post or each item in it. And we're going to return the ID. So let's see what happened. So notice how we have post ID didn't work for us. Why? Because like I said, if you want to execute JavaScript, because post ID is a JavaScript, you need to put it inside the brackets. So we go back. So we have post 1, post 2. What else we have available here? We have the title. So let's do, again, we're going to make this look nicer in a second. I don't care about making it look nicer now. I just want to make sure, can we at least show the data post.title before we do post.title? And let's see if that worked for us. It did not. Post.title. Oh, I messed up. I put 2 T's. Title doesn't have 2 T's. Title has 1 T, so I have to change it. So now this is going to work. See my first post, second post. But this is a spelling mistake, so let me fix it here. Now I have to fix this in my backend because I'm an idiot. And so the cool thing, because I'm using Strapi, it's very easy to do. I just go inside my Strapi thing, log in. I go to the object here, and then I say, no, it's 1T, finish, save. Now this is going to break our query, I believe, because we're using title with 2 T's. So I'm going to make sure that I change that in my code. So let's go to my query here, change it here. And then I think for the most part that should be fixed. And then we're getting a single title. So let's go back, refresh. We got loading error. Why are we getting an error? So title, that should be correct. And then, oh, I realized I'm not sharing my code. I'm sorry, guys. I'm such an idiot. Hey, Paul, what's up, everyone? So what I was kind of showing you guys before everybody kind of ran away because like, Paul's an idiot. He's not showing his screen. I basically created this. Let me kind of erase this for now. So basically, we're getting our data from our API. Once everything loads, everything from API will be stored here in data.posts. So we created a map. We used the map array method to loop through everything and kind of get everything back here. So let me refresh here. Now it's going to say it's an error because I had a misspelling somewhere and I broke it. So let me figure out where it is. And what's cool about it, it's whenever you make a mistake, like in your query, and you want to figure it out, I could just see if I could figure it out in our playground. So if I click here, can I return null for non-nullable title? So the issue why this is broke, originally we saved this with 2 T's title because I misspelled it, and now it's looking for 1 T. And then I believe that in database currently, because I changed the name, it's empty. And let me actually pull up the database here. I know it's a lot of stuff, guys, but I'm here to answer any questions, go into detail of anything. But right now, I'm always giving you kind of like the overview, PG admin. And I don't remember what I called this database. But I'll find it real quickly. So I have the backend is Strapi, but the database that I'm running with Strapi, it's called Postgresql, which is based on SQL. And if you're looking to get hired and looking to get a job, that's kind of what database you want to start with. I know MongoDB is popular, but if you're looking to get hired, I would suggest starting with a PostgresQL. So test API, what did I save it as? Postgres, Strapi API. I probably saved it under Strapi API. Let me see. I don't remember which one of these. Schemas, public, tables. Yeah, so this is it. So notice we added our posts, and look, I'm able to kind of see stuff like really quickly. And so what I want to see is drop. I don't want to drop create script. It's been a while since I used this. Let me see here. Post, drop, columns, click columns. So this is what we have. We have our title tags, and see title in our database. Currently it's with 2 T's. That's why it's complaining. So we have to fix this, which we could do in Strapi. So let me go back here. Let me make sure that I saved those changes. But I wanted to show you why the code wasn't working, is because our naming was off. And this is why you don't want to be like me making spelling mistakes, because it messes you up. So this is titled, this works, finished. So now we have to do to override it. Notice here, at title, blah, 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 private, expand, title. Here we go. So let's add a title. First post, save. And then let's go to the other post. And this is only because I messed up and I spelled title wrong. Second post, whatever, save. And let's see if that made those changes in the database. So let's go here, refresh. Where's the refresh button? Databases, Strapi API. Let's see here, schemas, public, tables, search object, refresh. So we refresh our tables. Let's go to our posts, open, columns, and now we have title here. So here's an issue. This is something to keep in mind, guys, when you're working with GraphQL and Postgres. I misspelled and I added the wrong name, title. So for me now, I have a duplicate of fields. So now what I have to do is I actually have to fix this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this whole thing. And now I don't have that row. So that's something to keep in mind. When you're working on backend development, make sure that you spell your fields correctly. Because if you don't, and you add a new field, like we added title, that old field will still be in the database. So you have to go ahead to remove it. But now let's go take a look and see on our front end. Refresh, and now everything works correctly. We get our first post, our second post, and then we also get this nice error, says warning, each child in a list should have a unique key. And the reason why, it's because whenever you iterate through a list in React, you need to have a key provided to it, so React knows what item to update when you're changing state. So the fix for this is super easy. What you do here, and I'm gonna put this in a div for now, a div, and we'll fix this later. Right now we're just getting the basics, like can we show the data, is it working before we start working on the UI. So and then you add key, and we want to use a unique value, and we know that post.id is the unique value. So I'm gonna kind of remove it from here, we don't need it. And then let's add a p tag for our paragraph for now, and eventually we're gonna change this to use Markdown. For now we're not going to worry about it, but Markdown will allow us to style this in very specific ways if you want. But for now we're just going to do post dot, I believe I called it content, post dot content. And now when I refresh, notice we get our posts and our content. So what did we accomplish? We accomplished a lot, believe it or not. I now know that my backend and front end is hooked up. I know that I'm able to get my data from our backend, and I could show it in the front end. And believe it enough or not, this is amazing because we made a crazy progress, because we're now able to show the data and show our blogs in the front end. Now we could focus on the UI and making it look like the way we want. So quick refresher before we continue. When I started the stream, the first thing I did is I created a very simple layout. I went ahead and I created simple layout. I want to have 2-column layout. On the left, we're going to have the names of the posts that we have. People are able to click on it. When they click on that post, they're going to see that post, which will have the image, the heading, and whatever else that we have on our blog, the data. Then what I went and I Googled how do people structure data when they're working with a database when it comes to post and what relationship they have. We obviously didn't go this complex route, but we basically needed an ID, a title, when it was published, and author's ID. And so if you look here in Strapi, when we go to posts, let me show you, edit the fields. We basically created these simple fields: title, text, content, private, and the author and the feature image. That's our data types for our database. And if you go and look at our database, see, these are the exact fields we have. We have our ID, tags, content, is it private or not, author, publisher, created out, our title, and the image is stored using Calendly, which I'll talk to you guys later how that's working. But for now, that is going based off the ID for this post. But we're not going to worry about that right now. We're going to worry about that when we get there. So now that we know that we are able to get our data, we're literally getting our data from our API, we could start kind of breaking things into components and getting things done. So the first thing we're going to do, we have this home section, we have this blog section. We're going to basically create our 2-column layout. And to do something different, we could create a reusable component that will allow us to display stuff in 2 columns layout that we could reuse here, or we could reuse in other sections of our app as we continue building. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go into the code, and I'm going to go into my components folder here. And basically in my components folder, I'm going to make a new component. I'm going to call 2-column layout or whatever. You could name it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it 2 columns layout. That's probably a really long name. I'm just going to say 2 columns. And then I'm going to create a new file called 2columns.jsx. And inside here, I'm going to make a very simple component, and it's going to be 2 columns. And so what I want to do here, I want to be able to pass children. And we're going to have the first, when you pass children into a React component, it's an array. I know it's going to be 2 items. And so the first item will be the left column. The second item is going to be the right column. So I'm going to destructure that called left and right. And I could call it first, second, but I'm going to call it left, right, so it makes sense. So we're getting it from children. And then for now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a div which is going to display left content from our children, and then I'm going to make another div that's going to display right. And now this is, in the most simplest way, this component is done. The sled component, we do have to add styling. I like to use styled component, so I already have the package in package JSON. I'm importing styled components, so now we're going to use it in our, let me close some of these extra windows because they're confusing me. In our 2-column layout, we're going to import styled from styled components. And the way you use styles in styled component is you create a wrapper component which allows you to write your CSS in them. So I'm going to create a component called const 2columns, and I'm going to add styled at the end, just so I know this is coming from styled components. We don't need this. And we're using styled, and it's going to be a div. And then whatever styling you put here, and I'm going to show you that it works, I'm going to do background something ugly red and color for text white. White. Why can't I spell? We do height is going to be 100 view height. Okay, and now if I want to add this styling that I created with using style component, all I have to do is wrap that component with the style component that I created. So now we have a style component that will have styles for background red, color white. And what's cool with style components, you could actually add props. So maybe I want this to be red initially, but I want to change the background color if I wanted to. And I'm just going to use that as an example. So the way you do it, you pass in a function, and we're going to structure, let's say, background. It could be anything, but it's going to be a background prop. And if we have background prop, we want to return that background. Otherwise, let's make the background red so it's ugly. So if I don't pass a background color, it's going to be red, ugly red. And you know what? We're going to do the same thing for the color. And I'm just using this as a teaching example to show you how you could dynamically style your styled components using styled component props. So if color prop exists, let's use color. And if it doesn't exist, let's make this white, right? And so I know my music turned off. Let me check it and play it again. Play the music again. We need some music. So now we basically have this basic component. And again, I just want things to work initially, and then we could update it, refactor it, make it look whatever we want. But for now, let's kind of see if we could get this to work. So I'm going to take this 2 columns. That's our component. Maybe it could have been a better name. We're going to go to our blog where we're already getting data from our API. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to basically pull in my 2 columns component. And we know that the way we created it, we wanted to pass children. So whatever we pass in here, let's say it's could be H1 for now, column 1, and then the second child will be H2, column 2, and then we want to pass, right now we're not going to pass any props, just to kind of see what we have. And I'm going to copy this code, Control X, because I want, I'm going to move it not to confuse us down here for now, but we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it. Right now, I just want to make sure is our styling for our style component working, and oh my God, it's this thing here. And by the way, if you feel like this is very unprofessional, what do you guys think you're doing at home when you're coding on your own? You're always going to be getting into problems, you're getting stuck. But that's why I keep telling you guys, build stuff from scratch, because the most important part to do is to make sure that you're able to get comfortable writing code from scratch, failing miserably like I am failing every stream, and kind of figuring out as you're learning. And we got endpoint here. Bro, use my blog management app as a template and improve it, please. Yeah, you know, that'll be a cool thing to do, because you did that backend API for it. You know, share your repo with me, and I'll definitely do a bunch of videos on implementing like that as well. That'll be really cool, I think. But for now, I'm using Strapi just because it's the easiest way to do it, because I don't have to worry about backend. But here we are. So let's see if this did anything. Moment of truth. So kind of is working. Let's make this 8.1. So we know our component works, but our styles are not working. I'm kind of curious why. So let's figure that out. And so first thing I'm going to do is inspect. I'm sure I made a mistake somewhere. What we have here, column. So div h1 children. So background white, background. Okay, I see what I did. I see what I did here. So easy. Let's go to our two columns component. And so I'm overriding it here. No, I meant to make this color. Let's check this out. So now we have background. If you provide a prop, it'll be that prop color. If you don't, it's going to be red. If you don't provide color prop, it's going to be white. So technically, we should see red background, white color. Let's take a look. And boom, look at that. Our style component works. Let's change the color via the props for now. And so what I want to do is I want to be able to pass the props. And the props, we have color, and then we have background. And we want to pass those props to our two column style component. We want to pass color equals color. And then we want to pass background equals background prop. And so what this is saying, if we have a color or background prop, pass it to two column styles. And then here, if you have background, use the background color. And if you have color, use whatever color. So let's basically, in our two columns where we're calling it in our block section, let's pass a prop for color, which is going to be equal something ugly like orange for the text. And let's make the background equal some other ungodly color. Well, black is not ugly. Black is good. So now, because we're passing props, notice here, we're able to style our component. So not only can I use this component anywhere, but I could also use it and style it differently. So if I decided, we're not going to do this here, but let's say if I had another two column component here, and this is just going to say other one, other two, and now I want to give different color, blue and yellow. And now if you look at here, look, we have the first component and the second component, and we're able to easily style it the way we want via props. And that's why I love style components, because it gives us this flexibility, allows us to do that. So let's kind of get rid of that second component because we don't need it. And then the last thing we need to do is figure out how to create our layout, our styling, where we're able to basically have two columns. And for now, I'm gonna keep it like very, very simple. You could use flex, you could use grid. I'm gonna use grid. So inside the two column component here, I'm going to make sure that we want to use display grid. And what I want to do here, I'm going to do grid template columns. Look, the auto suggest is awesome. If I do 1FR, 1FR is going to divide the spaces equally, which is fine for now. But if I want to have one thing be bigger than the other, these are fractional units. So 1FR and 2FR. 2FR is going to be twice as big as 1FR. So I'm going to kind of keep it like that for now. And we want to add grid gap. And let's do grid gap of 1 rem for now. Why not? Makes sense. And then let's add padding. Why not? 1 rem. And so let's see what I did. In theory, right now, we should have 2 different columns. Perfect. And here we go. We have our 2-column layout. And I think I want to make this column be shorter. So let's do 1FR, 3FR. We could also do it percentage-wise, but right now I just want it to work. Then we could refactor our code to our little heart's desires. And what I'm going to do, I'm kind of going to fix this and say, if there's no props, keep the background white and keep the color black. And what I'm going to do here is go back to our 2-column layout. That looks good. Let's go to a block here. I'm going to remove all these props that I pass. And so if you don't pass any props, it's just going to be white and black, just so it's easier to see. And here, by the way, because we use children, so let's review what we did. We created our 2 columns layout component, which is reusable because basically we could pass whatever component we want into here. And we styled it. Let's go back to our 2 columns. We used styled components to style it. Basically, we created a styled component wrapper that allows us to wrap our component, and whatever styles we put in here will style our 2 layout component. And we could see it's working because it's here. The issue right now, if I click inspect, let's say, and I bring it and make it really short, right, it doesn't stack. So that kind of breaks our mobile layout. So what we could do is we could do a media query. Let's actually do that first. So now I could go here at media query. So if an item gets smaller than 767, why don't we change it to be 1 column? And then we want the rows to take the same amount of space. We don't even need to, but let's do it for now. We'll do grid template just so we could see it. Actually, we're just gonna not worry about it. We just want it to be 1 column because let's just take a look here. And notice now our columns are stacked on top of each other. And if I make it bigger, look at that, side by side, I make it smaller, and it's super easy to write this logic with style components. And what's cool, this styling is contained to this component. So now what I could do is I could literally copy this component, move it to a whole different application, and it's gonna work fantastic. Let me take a look at the comments first before we continue. At least let's kind of create the components to display our blog. Right, and good morning, Alex. Great to see you. And NG boy, yeah, 100%. Does the left and right take 2 children from the 2 columns? 100%. And so right now, what we're doing here, we're passing from our blog. This is our children, and the way we're mapping the children in our 2 columns component. And again, if you pass 4 children, it's not gonna break our app, but it's not gonna show the remainder of the children, because in our 2 column component, we're saying, okay, from the children, get the first item in the array and the second item array. The first item will be the left, second item will be right, and this is why we still only show the 2 columns, right? Because I'm only destructuring those columns. But I could do third and fourth, because those are the children I'm passing. This is going to break our layout, but I just want to show you by example that when you get children, they're being passed via the array, and this is one way you could access them specifically. And so now, look, we have all those 4 items. So if I go back to block.js. This is 3. This is 4. So this, like if you want to make a 4-column layout or whatever, notice how we have access to that easily. But all I want is left and right. So I'm going to do it this way. And the reason why I like this, we now have flexibility to pass whatever component we want in here. And that's what we're going to do. Here we're going to pass something that's going to store our list item. And here we're going to pass something that's going to store our single blog item. But for now, before we get too far, let's kind of review here. Let's delete this. So basically, we created a 2-column kind of style component, or not style component, but layout component that allows us to pass props as children. And so now we could reuse this. And I'll show you one easy way to reuse this right now. Like I'm going to break my app, but if you go to our app.jsx here, right? So check this out. Actually, let me show you here. If you go to our home page, notice how, and granted we only have one item, but if I wanted to add a 2-column layout here, it's very easy to do. Let me log in. I'm going to show you another example here. Coding after 30, I think, test user. So once I log in, let's go to the dashboard. Notice how this right now is 1 column. But if I wanted to make this 2-column, right, I could reuse that component. And I'll kind of show you. I'll break my app and then I'll revert it. That's fine. But if I go to my dashboard, notice in our dashboard, we have our container and we have our form, right? Don't really worry about it. Let's say I want this form to be in the left column. Now I could call my 2-column component that we just created, right? And I could wrap that form. Hold on a second. Let me close it down. Oh, it's not letting me because I got to put a closing thing here. So now I could wrap the form in my 2 columns, right? And then this would be, let me do like an H1 here so you guys can see it. This will be call 2. And notice how this 2-column component that I created, it's like super reusable now. Like obviously it's going to break the layout here because I didn't, I made this too narrow. Maybe we could pass some props for column sizing. Let's go and fix that. Why not? So we're using grid here. And so what we could do now, we could pass, let's say we have a prop left and right, which will take in the size. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to write the logic here. If we have a, let's see here, let's do this here. How would I write this logic to simplify it? So if we have our, what would we call it? Let's call it left and right. So we have the left prop, right? We want to, or the right prop, I guess. Hold on a sec. And damn it, come back here. This might be a little bit tricky to do this way, but that's okay. We'll refactor later. So if we have our left and right prop, we're going to say that you have to provide both. Then set the, if you have both left and right, this actually is going to be set to the left and right. I don't know if it's going to work, to be honest. It actually has to be, because we're passing the size. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to kind of do this because these are, we need to put them in templates, I'm assuming. Property destruction expected. Okay, hold on a second. We need to put the whole thing here like this. Right GHT, right GHT. Hold on a second. I'm breaking stuff. It's okay. Like breaking stuff is fine. If not, we're gonna return whatever the size we have, 1fr and 2fr. And so if we have right, did I spell right? I actually haven't done it like this, passing like 2 values, so I'm not even sure if it works. It's complaining because expected any... Oh, I think it's complaining because we're not passing it. Oh, hold on a second. Someone somewhere is not closed. Okay, hold on a second. We have too many brackets. Let me kind of remove this. Yeah, I think I was missing a bracket. That's why I was complaining. Let me put extra spaces here. Okay, so now it's still complaining. Extra bracket left and right. If... Yeah, this is why, like, I'm telling you guys... Oh, this has got to be this. What am I doing? So that's fixed. Let me make this bigger. This is why I tell you guys, starting your own, like, I'm not like a professional. I'm not like some expert. Like, you see me struggle, and like, I've never tried to do it like this. I was assuming you could do it. My assumption was wrong. So let me kind of do like a devil's advocate here. Let me hard code it first. Let's hard code it and see if it's gonna work. 1fr, 1fr. So that's not complaining. Okay, so I feel like I have to do this. I feel this is what I have to do. I feel like this seems right because I need to get access to the left and right, but I need to return a string. So if we do left and right, so right, G8HT, I'm dyslexic, so I have, okay, so that works. So now basically what we're doing is we try to create, and then we're missing something again. What are we missing here? Grid template column. Left, right, and return this. Is this an extra? There's something extra somewhere. Control X. Control V. Okay. There we go. I had an extra bracket. The brackets kill me, guys, like, to my stuff. So now we have left and right, and now what I could do, if we're not passing any props, the layout is going to be what we had before. So if you go to blog, what did I break? Somewhere my fingers broke something. We'll get to it in a second and fix it. So at least we got this working. Right now it's failing at getting data. So let's go to our blog here. Post query. Posts. Yeah, I hate it when I break stuff. So it works here. So this query works. Maybe I have to refresh. Refresh. Home. Blog. We get an error. Let's go console log this error. Or network. Click. We're not passing any variables. So let's come back here. I'm just curious what I break. So we have our blog, we have our query. We're calling use query. We don't need any variables. Loading error. Do we have error here? Let me do error dot message. What are we getting? It's so funny. You like try to fix one thing, forbidden. Let's see here. Set. Oh, okay. So the error is coming from the fact that before I was not logged in. So just whenever using Strapi, you need to give permission for everything. So before we had roles, I made it public. So you should be able to see the posts publicly. But now that we're logged in, we also have to give permission to be able to see the posts when we're logged in. So that's a very easy fix. You go to roles, authenticate it, go to posts. So, you know, when you initially set everything up in Strapi, it's not going to give you permission. You have to specifically say that, which is good for security purposes. I thought I broke something. So now if I refresh, notice now we have our items and we have that column layout, and I reused that custom 2-column layout component that we did in our dashboard, but I don't like the same size. So now we could use props to make this a little bit better. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass left and right prop that we just defined here. I'll show you here. So 2 columns. We defined a, where is it? 2 columns. We defined a left prop and right prop that we passed. Okay, that's bad because it interferes with our current left and right prop. So we're going to call it left size, right size. That's going to be our prop name so it doesn't interfere. We need to pass that into our styled component so we have access to those props. Left size, right size. And so basically those props are going to be passed into here. And if we don't have the props, it's going to be that 1 to 2FR. Let's make it 3FR to so you guys could see it's going to be very smooshed. It looks bad here, but on our blog section it's perfect. This is the type of layout we want. So now to change it in our dashboard component, right, we're just going to press props and we're going to change the sizing. So let's go to dashboard. This is the flexibility of using style components and creating reusable components. So I'm reusing 2 columns in 2 different places. So if you want the size to be 1FR for the left side, and out of habit, I always put the brackets, but you could just pass a string like this, but I just like brackets, so I'm going to do it 1FR right GH right. Okay, need the closing. And so in theory right now, because we're passing these props are going to be passed to this 2-column components, right? And then we're passing them here as left size, right size. Actually, I had to call it left size, right size. Let me come back here. Dashboard. It's left size. Your prop names have to match. Right size. And again, this is just for learning purposes. You could see how you could add flexibility through using props. We could refactor this later. So if you go to our 2 columns layout, we're passing left size and right size. These props are going to be passed to the styling in our styled component here. And then if we go back to our dashboard, refresh, it's not working. So somewhere something's broken. Let's inspect. Let's see the issue here. So our height, background, grid template. So this is being overwritten. 1FR, 3FR. But what is it being overwritten with? That's the interesting question. Again, always running into issues. Left and right. Left and right. We're passing left and right. What's cool, because you could write like JavaScript here inside Oh, Jesus Christ. Ah, the $sign. I could do a function here, do console log. Two columns styled, and I could see if I actually have access to these props. Are they being passed? So let's go to console log. So our left and right props are undefined. So something weird's happening. So now I could back out one step and be like, is left side and right side being passed? Control copy for our two columns. Let me console log them here. Two columns. Are we having access here? Left size, right size, two columns component. And sometimes you gotta like just troubleshoot stuff. You know what I'm saying? So let's see if we get that here. Go back to our console log. So one FR is being passed. So left size and right size. So I'm curious why it's not being passed here. We are passing it here. They're both there. Left, right. Oh, maybe this is an issue. No, but it's still gonna complain. So we get the left size passing. It's the right side that's not working. So I spelled right badly. R-I-G-H-T, right? Correct. Control copy. Right. We're passing. Oh, here's the issue. Boom. The spelling. Spelling always messes me up. And so now, notice how now we're able to style the dashboard to column layout differently from our blog. So on our blog, we have, you know, the first column is shorter, the second column is longer. That's what we want. But when we go to our dashboard, our two column layout, you know, the form takes 50% of the space, and then the second column takes 50. Maybe we want the form to take more space. So I could go back now to dashboard.js and make the first column take 2 spaces, and then the right side 1. And so notice we're able to dynamically change the sizing. So it took a little detour. Hope that made sense to you. Let me look at the comments if you guys have any before continuing, because I want to get somewhere. And then Vinyl Guy saying, I have to relearn CSS grid. I feel as though I've forgotten to memorize, but I memorize basics. Flexbox. The cool thing, there's in CSS tricks, just do grid CSS tricks, I think. And then you could do flex CSS tricks, and they have the complete guide. And that basically shows you everything you need to know about grid. And then if you search CSS tricks flex, it's going to show you the complete guide for flex. So yeah, that's I don't remember everything either. Oh, cool. I'm glad you find the stuff that I do here useful. Talk about some course you bought. I haven't used, I used Microsoft SQL Server when I worked with ASP.NET and C# at my last job. And that's kind of like what I used to check the database, look stuff up to make sure that the data that I was posting from my front end was working. But that was all because we were using C# ASP.NET, and when you're using it on Windows, you would use Microsoft SQL Server to make it work. I haven't used it since then, though. And then I guess Vinyl Guy, blah, 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 implying to Tammy. Fantastic. I'm glad you guys are talking to each other. This is amazing. blah, blah, blah. Nice. I love that you guys having discussions about anything. I also have the JS and Node. Yeah, there's a lot of great courses, guys. By the way, if you haven't completed like one course, make sure you work that course from start to finish, build something from scratch. Don't try to get into a point where you're just getting caught up and doing like bajillion tutorials. You need to do one from start to finish, and then build something from scratch based on that. And then here we go. Paul, as I get more into string type of literal structure, I'm running into more and more issues with using the wrong braces, brackets here. I also have to remember to use backticks, not a single quote. Yeah, 100%. And that's something you're going to get. Like Norris, I run into the same goddamn issue. So like just through practice, it will stick. It will stick. Okay, so now basically before we end the stream, let's make something useful happen. So we have our 2-column layout, right? We have our 2-column layout here in our application. Let's go to our blog because that's what we're working on. So what I want to do, at least for today, I want to map all the different items in the left column that I could click on that will take me on and showcase that blog for that particular post. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to use React Router. And I know they just changed it, so I'll do it the old way. And then once I get all the routing done, I'll come back and I'll refactor. And that could be a learning experience for everyone, including myself, to refactor to React Router 6 or whatever the hell it's called now. But for now, let's just get it to work. So right now, I want to basically here get all my post names showing up, that when I click on it, it will find the post that I want. So that's what we're going to work on. So what I'm going to do is we're in our blog section. Let's make a blog list component. And the blog list component is going to list out all the blogs. My kitty's here. No, I'm sorry, kitty. I know you want attention. Oh. The funny thing about this cat, when she gets nervous, she farts. And she just laid like a big ass fart in my face. Thanks, kitty. Go away. Let me just kind of let it go here. Let the kitty out and play. Open the door here. But let's create a blog list component that is going to handle getting all the items, all the blogs, and displaying them in a list form. So what I'm going to do is kind of write the logic here, and then we're going to move it into a separate component, right? So we're going to have a div, and what this div is going to do, it's going to, we already wrote this code, it's going to iterate through, okay, I gotta put it in the brackets here, and let's do like a, and again, we're gonna do something very simple, and then we could refactor it, all posts, damn it, all posts, and then we're going to have, we could make it, okay, so we're going to make it be links. So I'm gonna first, let's display it first. Let's see if it still works. And we want to return post title. We don't need the content. Right now, I just want to make sure that it works. So perfect. It looks ugly as but it works. So we're able to display the names. And so what we want to do is let's take this logic, copy it out of here, and let's go to components and create a blog list component. We could make a reusable list component, but let's start simple. New folder, we're going to call it blog list, and new file called blog list.jsx. And believe me, guys, I'm going to be doing a lot of refactoring here. RFC, and this blog list, it's going to take posts, posts, And what we're going to do, we're going to copy and paste that working code that we got. So it's going to map through the posts. What is it complaining about now? Post is not, oh, misspelling. Post, Shift Alt F, oh damn it, Shift Alt F. So basically we created this blog list component. It's going to take in posts and it's going to iterate through all the posts and it's going to return those posts. Let's kind of call this a span for now. So now let's see if we could utilize this list component. Children, yep, of course it's not iterable because we're broke it. We'll fix it. So let's go to our blog, and what we want to do is we want to pull in our blog list component, and this takes posts, and those posts are coming from the data.posts. So basically we create a blog list component that will basically take posts as a prop, and it's going to return the list of all the titles. So notice how this works, right? We have second post, first post. But if I wanted to, let's say, reuse this blog list in another place, right? We still need to pass the data in here as post. Maybe what we're gonna do, actually handle getting all that list, that data from inside that component. So what I'm gonna do, just delete blog lists and get this logic for getting the data inside blog list. And the reason why it's cool is because if I want to have this blog list functionality somewhere else and move that component, I'm also going to have access to all the functionality in it. So let's go to our blog list and let's add that previous code inside here. Let me just import. Yes, how did you know we're gonna use link in just a second? We want to import GQL and use query from Apollo client. We want to also make sure that we bring our query that we wrote before here. Okay, we could delete this, we don't need this. Let's go to our blog list component. Let's import our query. And so basically all we did, we just moved the code from its parent component, and we just decided that the blog list is going to handle the fetching and the data. So if you go back here, it's going to complain because this has got to be data.posts because we kind of refactored the logic. So now, as you could see, we're still getting the post here, right? And so what we want to do is add a functionality whenever someone clicks the post, is going to send them to a link to that post. So it'll be blog / whatever name of post. So the way you could do that is you could use a link from React Router DOM. And so instead of a span, we could make this a link. And if not sure how to use links, you could look up React Router DOM. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I know that currently they changed it, but whatever. React Router DOM. Just always don't be shy reading the documentation. So we go to React Router DOM. I know they just changed it, but I think the links will stay the same. So we want to use link, and we want to say where we want to send or redirect the user. So what we're going to go off, and eventually we're going to refactor, but we're going to basically, when people click this link, we want to, actually it's going to be what do you call it, the template literals, because we want access. We want to route them to based off the ID. So it's going to be post. Sorry, guys. It's going to be post dot ID for now. And so if we go back to our application, notice we have these links. When you click on them, they're going to take you to the route. And we actually wanted to say blog and the like this, like blog.to. So we wanted to route to that route. And so this means we have to do what they're called nested routes. For now, we're going to cheat a little bit, and then we'll refactor to do the right way. But notice we're going to send people to blog/post ID here. And so when I do this and I click this, you see how the ID changes based on the click. And now we want to create a page where when we click this, it's going to display here the page that we want to see. Now, it's been a while since I did nested routing, so let's fail at this together. But at least this works. So that's fine for now. We could leave this alone. So now in block.jsx, we want to create a route here, which will, I think it's router. I'm actually don't remember exactly, and this, no, it's we want to use router or switch, whatever. Let's just randomly try some stuff and see what happens. Route, path, blog ID component, blog detail. That makes sense. So when people go on this route, it should show the component that will show blog details, which we haven't made it yet. So I'm going to kind of fake it. And we could also, because we're using the old route, we could actually pass this like this. But for now, I'm going to just do h1. This will be blog detail component. Again, right now, I'm just trying to work off memory from scratch. I don't remember exactly how to do it, but here's the thing. Like, I'm trying to figure stuff out on my own, and let me fail first before looking up the solution. So router, React router DOM, maybe we want to import it from router, and then route, we want to import route. And in theory, this should work, but it probably won't. By the sign of the way this is looking, that was not good. And so this will be blog detail component, routes, nested routes, blog ID path, router, route. I know we need router. And so when you get stuck, I'm gonna kind of like, not to waste time, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, like, I would try to fail more on my own, by the way. I would try to fail more often. React router, nested routes. Like, let me fail on my own, but so here we go. We have topics. We have topics, and then there's nested route. Path, topic ID, topics. So topics, this is kind of what we want. So let's take a look here. We have our initial routing, we have link, home, topics. Then it takes us to our topics. So the blog routes us to the blog component. So let's kind of see how we have it here. So we have app.js, we are routed to blog. Okay, that seems correct. Then we have our topics component. They're using a switch instead. I don't see why. Okay, route. Please select the topic. Route path. So this looks kind of exactly what, but they're using path. Exact path, path. And where are they getting path from? Maybe. Hold on a second. I'm just reading through here. No, path is what we want to go to. But I don't see where they declared the path here. Path, route, path equals topics. Path equals blog. Use params, use match, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and so a lot of times you just gotta spend some time reading the documentation, kind of seeing what we need to do. Okay, so I see what they're doing. They're getting path from use route match. So let's try that. Let's copy and paste this. Let's go to our blog, not list, our blog. Nope, yeah, blog. This will be a blog. We want to import they use switch, and I'll use switch as well. And switch basically will order one or the other. So if there's no item, it will go to, like, you could do a default 404 page, or if you have multiple items, if you don't use switch, it's going to basically render all those things. So switch, kind of like a switch statement in JavaScript, if you were to think about it, where it basically will only, I can't spell switch, render one item at a time, to think of it, which is what we need, because we want to render one block at a time. Then we're importing use route match. Okay, let's try that. And notice how I'm trying stuff. I'm not just willy-nilly just looking to get a solution. I'm literally failing and learning from my failures, learning from making mistakes. And this is like how I recommend you guys learn. And this is going to be inside the component. And now we have access to the path. And so in our route, we're going to, what are we going to do? We're going to have a template string. And so they're saying basically for our route, we want to pass the path and then the ID. So we're gonna do something like this. So we're gonna be using the path, and I'll select the path just to kind of see what it is. Select the path. And then let's say post ID to be more specific of what this is. So let's kind of go back. App.js, when people land on blog, they go to the blog page. The blog page will have a route. If the route matches post ID, it should show this message. So let's kind of come back here. And it works. All right, so now basically what we're getting, whenever people click onto second post, first post, what we want to do is show and get that post and display it here. And the way you get access to the route ID, I believe you use params hook. So let's check it out. Let's do React Router, Google search React Router, use params hook. And this will allow us to access that ID that we're passing, and that ID is what we're going to use to fetch the details for our blog that we want. So let's look at use params here. So basically, use params hook allows us to access whatever ID we pass in our URL. So notice here, every time I click, this is post 2, this is post 1, we get this ID. And so what we want to do is we want to fetch the data based the ID. We don't need the URL here. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in that. And by the way, this could be const. This slug name, it's not slug name. It has to match what we give it here. So it's going to be matching post ID use params. Let's import use params. And then let's console log post ID and see if it worked. Is post ID. This should be a comma. And what I'm going to do for this stream, I'm just going to finish up kind of the basics of making sure we could get the data and go from there. So let me open the console log. So we'll be done like in soon, in like 15-20 minutes. Like we'll go another just to make sure that we make something work. So console log. God damn it, why is it so big now? Post ID is undefined. Post ID is undefined, so we're not getting it. Let's see if we could figure out why. Let me just const test. Let's see what this returns actually. So let's refresh. So when I click here, so returns an empty object. So there's nothing there. I wonder why. So use params path. We wanted to display it here. We passing post ID path. Now let's go to our links blog list. So this would link to where we need to go. I hate when you run into problems, but that's just the reality of coding. Like when you're coding on your own, you're doing live stuff, not prepared, like, you know, you're going to get into issues. And that's exactly what's happening. We're getting into issues and then trying to figure out what's happening. Post ID. And I wanted to pass it via routes. I'm not sure why this is not working. There's something I'm missing. Link a blog. Let me path post ID. And this is showing up. This makes sense. A little bit stumped, but that's okay. We're gonna work at it. We're gonna figure out this issue. I'm trying to figure out why I'm not able to pass the params that I get here at the URL. We're using use params. Let use params. We're getting return to now showing slug. This is what in theory it should show. Blog.slug. Now they show like a different example here. This path, what's path? Let me select path. Yeah, I know it's boring sometimes to watch people troubleshoot and try to figure out like what's wrong, but that's what you guys are going to be doing at home, and you guys kind of have to get used to it. So path is returning that. I'm assuming maybe we need to have a bracket afterwards, like something. No, we are putting the bracket there. Let me console log this. I'm curious. So let me clear this. This will be blog details. That's showing up. But it's not passing. I'm curious. Experimentation time. Let's see. Like, it's gonna be stupid if this fixes it, but I'm pretty sure it won't. No. There's another way I could implement this, but I do want to do it with routing. So let's go to blog, go to the definition. Blog list, we're using use params, React router DOM. Test, post ID, get the path. I have to read more documentations. Let me remove all the extra console logs so I don't have to look at them. This we don't need because we know this works. This we don't need, that works. This where's that console log? This console log we don't need because it works. This console log you don't need because it works. It's post ID path. This is our post. We don't have to worry about this. Yeah, troubleshooting is like the most boring part. And if you guys have some suggestions or ideas, let me know, because it is being changed here. Let's go back and look at the documentation again. It's all about reading documentation. So use params. Yeah, this looks normal. Yeah, Walter, you're absolutely right, except I'm not even getting it in there because I did try to destructure earlier the param ID. So right now I'm just trying to see why the object is empty. So I was going to do like something like this, and before it didn't work. Post ID. And then console log post ID. Yeah, and it's still undefined. So now it's time to do some advanced Googling. Use params does not work in nested route. How to use blah blah blah. Let's look at that. Use param stop working when using route render. Nope, that's not worry about. Let's look at this one first. A lot of times you just gotta read through stuff. Route, exact path. Let's play the music again. Okay, that wasn't helpful. Let's look at this one here. So we have switch. Now I'm curious because I'm passing it not via the component or render. That's interesting. We'll take a look at that because I thought it's supposed to work either way. Huh. Okay, that's a little bit helpful. So here we go. Blah blah. I realize we're starting a little slow here, but blah 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 blah. Let's take a look here. Yep. And like when you're learning to code, like you literally have to get comfortable skimming through stuff and becoming like master home. Hey Tian, thanks so much. Hey man, just wanted to say thanks for the motivation to learn to code. Impossible is nothing. Yeah, I mean, like you see me getting stuck all the time, and you know what? It's perfectly normal. What I hate is that when people do like these perfect tutorials where nothing goes wrong, or live coding where everything was prepped ahead of time and nothing goes wrong, and then people like think that, oh man, like you gotta do everything from like without mistakes or whatever. Yeah, command plus, good idea. No, sometimes I'm just too lazy, but that would make it so much easier open new links without going right click or hitting the plus button. Very good tip, by the way. I gotta incorporate it more. So home, blah 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 blah, path, topics. So topics, that's exactly what we're doing. When we add blah 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 blah, finally, yeah, there we got this working. Sometimes I feel like my head's gonna explode. Like I know I'm making like a super dumb mistake and it's just blank. And so when you do get stuck like this, like I'm getting stuck right now, like sometimes it's good to take a break, but I am like kind of want to figure this out at least tonight. I mean, like, is it too much to ask for? Is it too much to ask for me to figure this out tonight? I know that like if I don't figure out tonight, I'm gonna be able to figure out like 2 minutes after I hang up with everybody, but I'm kind of curious. So and sometimes what you could do, you could create an example in isolation, you know what I mean? To kind of be like, okay, if that wasn't working, let me try something else. Because what's interesting, it's like whenever we pass whatever, okay, hold on a second. We're passing the ID, it goes and renders that page, but it's just not passing the route params that we want to get. And I wanted to do it with routes because when people like share the URL, they should be able to use that URL to be like, oh, check out this post based on the ID, and it should show it. And so that's why I'm hesitant to not give up and do this. And I've done this before. Right now I just think like, man, like how long, like damn, like what am I doing wrong? And I know post ID is working. Let's not that it's gonna make a difference. Let's hard code it, see what happens. Doesn't make a difference. So if you're using link, React router DOM, getting path post ID, try to use the, that's actually, so I am inside. Okay, so I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, that's probably gonna fix it. You're probably absolutely right. So let me do this for now. So you have to create a component function post detail. Yeah, I think you're right. I now that I think about it, I think you're 100% right on this regard here. Aye, where are you going? So return h1 post ID. Post ID. Oh. And so let's do this. So we have a component post detail inside route, and we have use params inside that component. You're a genius. You're an absolute genius, Walter. And I gotta look into that to find out what the reason, because like, I mean, it makes sense now after the fact. And I remember that every time I would have a separate component, like in this case, this is how I knew, oh, just make a separate component, put it in there. But I figured that it would work regardless, because in theory, it's like, you know, but it makes sense. It makes sense now that I think about it, because I was outside of the route. You're a genius, Walter. You're a genius. So the reason why that worked and before it didn't, it's because I was trying to call use params outside of this route, thinking that, oh, you're inside it because I wrote everything in the same screen. So the reason why this works is because we have the route and we're passing that component, post detail. So let me go and create this component outside of here. But brilliant. Yeah, because I started this project so long ago. I started with router 5. Once I get this blog working, like next week in the live stream, what I'll do, I'll refactor everything to use router 6. I just didn't want to do it today, and it's kind of nice to kind of run into all these issues. You know, it's fun, a learning experience. So let's kind of finish up fairly quickly to get the data based on the route that we're passing based on ID. But first thing I'm going to do, a new folder, call it blog detail, new file. And that's why I love you guys, because, you know, I don't know everything. I don't even know a lot. And it's awesome to have you guys kind of be on the live here. Hopefully you're getting some value out of what we're doing. Vlog, let me just post this. Oh no. God damn it. I hate when you click Control copy instead of Control V when you want to post something. So I'm just like doing exactly what I did to get it to work, but I moved out the component separately for post detail, because this is where we're going to handle the logic to get the single item. So let me see that things still work. Let's go to blog. Let's import post detail. Okay, let's see it. Yeah, so perfect. So this is working. So now what we're getting is we're getting the URL. So let's basically write a query to fetch a single item based on the ID. So just to kind of review here quickly, we have our blog list component that returns a link of all the blog posts that we have on our database. Now, by clicking the link that it creates, it pushes us to the blog detail page, and we have access to the ID. So now what we want to do is we want to fetch that post based on the ID. So we're going to import GraphQL and use query from Apollo client. And before we write the next code, what we want to make sure that in Strapi we allow you to be able to query the post. So we go to settings, and we need to do it for both roles for public. So on public post, we want to be able to find one count. So that's all set. I just want to check. Let's go to setting. Let's go to roles, authenticate it, make sure that we selected it. So for post, yep, count, find, and find one. That's what we need. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go to GraphQL here, and we're going to write a new query, and it's going to call new query. And what we're going to do here, actually I'm going to give it a name, query, and we're going to call it post query, which is to get a single post. And we're going to pass inside here the post ID. And I just want to look at the docs here. If we click post, we have access to this ID. So what we want to do is we want to pass the ID variable, and we could call it post ID, and this is going to be an ID type. And then we're going to call our post query that requires the ID, and it's going to be equal to the variable post ID. And what we want to return, and we're going to kind of make it like pretty easy, we want to return the ID, we want to return the title, we want to return the content, we want to return the author ID, first name, last name, and then we want to return tags. Oops, we don't need a comma. We want to return created at, so we know when the post was created. And lastly, we want to return the featured image. And featured image, I believe we get formats. And so let's test this query out. First thing I want to do is make sure we pass a variable to here. And this is like when you're working with GraphQL Playground. And yeah, thanks, Final Guy. I'm really excited. And I kind of knew that. And until Walter said it, I was like, Paul, you're such an idiot. You need to make sure that you're accessing the component from the routes to have access to the params. And I would have never got it today, by the way, until Walter said it, which is good. But eventually I would be like, yeah, I'm such an idiot. So post ID, and we have post with a name 1. And so when I click 1, notice we are able to get the first post. When I set it to 2, click 2, we get the second post. So this query works. This is why I like GraphQL Playground, because it allows you to test it. So now let's go back into our code. And what we're going to do is we're going to implement that query in our post details. So first thing we're going to do is define that query const post query, and let me copy it from the GraphQL Playground where it worked. So I'm just going to copy this right here, control copy. Let me go back here, copy this whole thing actually. Control copy. Okay, so we have our query, and we know the basic pattern. We do const, we get access to the data object, loading and error from use query, and we pass to it our post query query. And the second argument that we need, because we are providing we need to look it up by the ID. We need to add our variables, and that's going to be our post ID. And that post ID comes from our post ID param. This actually should be in front, so it doesn't complain. And because the name is the same as that thing that we're passing, we could just say post ID. So now we're gonna test if loading, return loading, if error, return error message, and if data, let's console.log the data. And let's see if it works. Let me refresh. Let me go back to the blog. One thing we have to do is, right now, whenever you go to blog section, it's not going to show any blogs, right? That's fine, but it'll be nice if when you go to blog, it'll show you either the most popular posts, or show you the first item, which we'll handle later. But for now, we're gonna go, okay, second post. Notice when I click first post, it shows 1. When I click second post, it shows the second post. And notice that we get that post. So I'm on post 2, so I got the second post here. If I click post, first post, we get that data coming from the API for the first post. So to finish up this live stream, I know it's been going forever, and we kind of been here for a while. You could always rewatch the whole stream from the beginning, from start to finish on 2 speed. I wish they had 3 speed. By the way, if you haven't liked it and you appreciate what I do here, consider liking or subscribe to the channel if you're new here. If you like what I do here only, you know what I mean? But anyway, let's now just show those posts, and we're going to do like the very most basic way, and then we'll refactor them. So we know we get access to the post. So let's create a div, and I'm going to style it afterwards, maybe next stream. But for now, let's get the post title. Let's get the post content. Let's on top here do an image source. we're gonna get the image for it, and this is coming from our data. And if you don't want to constantly write data.post whatever, you could destructure the post from data, and you could just, and actually we could destructure the post and only get the items we want. So we want featured image, we want title, content, and then we could just do this like this. Boom, boom, boom. And then let's also do something for let's get the author, and we'll get the first name and last name. And I believe it's going to be author, first name, last name. And so here we're going to do author dot first name and author dot last name, and we just want to get first name here, and we just want to get the first letter, so I'm just gonna return the first letter. So I think that should work. This is complaining because we probably want an alt tag. An alt tag, we're just gonna put, for now, we could fix it later, title. And so now in theory, this should return all that data that we want. So let's refresh. So cannot read formats, blah, blah, blah. And that's for the image here. So let me kind of do this for now. Okay, so we got first post, we got the post, second post, we got the second post. Let's fix the image. So let me see why. Let me console.log featured image, inspect console. So we have formats, thumbnail, URL. So we'll do this. Hold on a second. So for the image, let's check if you have featured image and only show the image, just to do like a sanity check. Yeah, perfect. So the reason why one the post didn't work because maybe I didn't add an image. So we're checking for that failure. So let's see, second post, first post. So first post does not have an image, so let's not show it. If second post has an image, let's show it. So let's kind of go see why that image is not showing in the back end here. Let's go to our posts. So this one has an image, first one. Okay, so we never added an image. So let's add an image. Let's do this one. Save, finish, save. And great, so that works. Let's see if it works in the front end. Let's refresh. Second post, first post. So we got an image, and so I know it doesn't look pretty, right? I know this needs to be styled, but we set out to at least get the functionality with the bare minimum that we possibly can. So now I know the functionality works. I know that I'm able to get data from an API. Yeah, like getting timestamps at this would be a cool idea. The issue for me, I already barely have like a lot of time, unfortunately. And so sometimes it's really hard for me to rewatch the video and put the timestamps. So I apologize for that. Like if anybody ever watches my streams and you want to add the timestamps yourself, you guys will be like amazing saints. You'll be amazing saints to do that. But you know, eventually I'll have to, you know, do that. But right now with work and everything else, it's so hard for me to do that. But I totally feel your pain, and I'm sorry for that. You know, but I totally get it. I think it'll be easier with timestamps to be able to find stuff. 100%. So now, you know, second post, first post works. So quick review what we did before we finish out the stream here. Damn, this was a long ass stream, 2 hours and 30 minutes. And I think it's just because you saw like running into trouble happens and then figuring stuff out. So we'll do like a really quick closing out here. So what I did, we decided that we wanted to add a blog to our website. So we added this blog section, and you could click on the post now and see the post. And before we got this far, what I did is I created a basic UI. I said, okay, if we wanted to have 2 layers, on the left side, we want to have the titles for the post that you click on. And on the right side, we want to show and get that single post that we clicked on. Also, I kind of Googled the data structure for the, you know, database. What are the common fields you should have? I didn't go as complex as this example, but to show you here on our backend here for our post, we have our title, tags, content, is it private or not, the author, and the featured image. So that's what we have in our database: ID, tags, content, private, author, published. And then the image works a little bit different because that's stored on Cloudinary based, I believe, on the ID. So we set up the database, and then once that was done, we basically, you had a plan and we started implementing. So in code, what we did, let me close all these unnecessary windows so I could kind of review quickly here. All right. So we started in our app.js folder and we added this route for our blogs. Once we added the route for the blogs, I went ahead and in our navigation component, top nav, I added a link that takes us to the blog section. And this is this functionality here. When you click home, it takes you home. When you click blog, that's the link. It takes you to our blog page, our blog component. So let's take a look at our pages and look at our blog page. What we incorporated here, and I could delete this, we created a reusable component called toColumns, which takes in children. And so on the first column is blog list, and then our second column is our switch for the post detailed section. And if you look at toColumns, it's a very simple component where we basically passing the children, and the first child is the left pane, the second child is the right pane. So as you look here, this is the first pane, right? The left side, and this is the right side. So the left side is our blog list component, and then the right side is our blog detail component. So let's take a look at our blog list component. Basic structure here is we are writing our GraphQL query, and we're using the useQuery query hook. We don't need the post here because we're now getting it directly from the post query inside here. And what we're doing is we're running that query. If it's loading, show loading screen. If it's error, show the error. But if there's no error, we're getting the data of posts, which is all the posts that we have. We're iterating through those posts using the map function, and we're returning back a link. So that's what you see here. These are links that take you to those articles. And then the final component that we had is our post detail component. If you take a look here, we're using use params to get the post ID that we want to be able to query that post based on its ID. We wrote a post query that we passed the ID to it, and we return all the required data that we need, either ID, title, content, author, all that good stuff. And basically, once we return the data, we basically present it in our UI. Next live stream, I'm gonna refactor the CSS and make changes to kind of finalize it, make it better. But what we have here now, and for posts, you could see them regardless if you logged in or not. So notice boom, we're able to see the list of all the posts, and we're able to see the blogs. So this is fantastic. We got the basic functionality working, and now we're able to move on and add and improve on this and refactor. And this is what I talk about, guys. Whenever you're building a project, try to keep the scope simple. Try to get the bare minimum that you can do to get it to work. And now you could see Tuesday night stream is done, and we actually have something to show for it. We're able to add the blog posts in the back end, and we're able to see the list of them on the front end, and we're able to select each individual list item, and we're able to display the selected item. To kind of show you this example before we finish, if we go to our API here, and eventually we'll figure out how to do this from the front end, but right now we're going to use this back end with Strapi. If I go to post, add a new post, you know, we could give it a tag. Let's say it's a web dev. We're not displaying it right now. Let me just post some dummy text, and we'll say it's not private. Let's add a different image here and click finish. Let's add a title, third post. Let's save. Let's add a user that's going to be posted by Aria. Let's save. Let's click publish. And now when we go to our front end, refresh, notice we have our third post. We click on it, and now we see the third post with the post and the data. So that's amazing. That's awesome. I know today was a super long stream, but we got stuck. We hit our head against the wall a bunch of times. And that's why I share these live streams, to show you the reality of coding on your own and doing the work yourself. So thank you so much for all of you that stuck around, all of you who made it through the full stream, which is ridiculous. Again, the reason I do these live streams, hopefully you're getting some value, but the most important value that I believe you should get from this live stream is this: if you set a schedule and you stick to it and you do a little bit every day, your simple project will become more complex and more complex. And the whole point here is for me to show you how I went and built a cornerstone project that has some complex functionality over time. Notice I'm not jumping from one project to another. I'm keeping it consistent. I'm keeping it the same. I'm working on this project until it's done, and I want it to be complex enough that when people see this project on my portfolio, they're like, oh my God, this guy knows what he's doing. Let's hire him. So with that being said, because I know my voice is about to go off screen, I'm going to commit and save all these changes. But for you right now, I don't want to put you guys through that pain. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching the live stream. Thank you for coding along with me. I love you all. I appreciate you, all of you guys. Have a good night and have a great rest of the week. See you guys later.